Pressure continues to be normal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger roll, Atlantic.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight outside SCE off. Bring in SCE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
Hello, everyone, to a beautiful night/morning wherever you're watching from, and also shout outs to the Asian and Australians who, for once, don't have a bad time with this launch. My name is Adrian Bile, and we are watching Falcon 9 on Pad 39A here before Starlink mission. And if you give me a 5x5 in chat, I see that, yeah, apparently I'm coming through clear. And I am not alone for this launch. I am joined by wonderful people who will help the commentators for me, starting with Alex. Alex, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great. Kind of taking the lead here, us Europeans, for all the Americans. I should say it's a very horrible hour for them, but I think we are joined by at least one American, I guess.
Yeah, somebody drew the short straw, I would say. Thomas, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Appreciate the European contingent helping us out this morning, but it is a beautiful morning to go to space, I'd say. Just a couple clouds in the sky above the Kennedy Space Center, where you are looking live at Launch Complex 39A ahead of yet another Falcon 9 launch, and should be a wonderful morning for a launch.
Wonderful. And as always, we want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have questions about this launch, make sure to tag at NASASpaceflight in chat, which will make your message appear for us here, and we can then answer them over the next 40 minutes to T0. Thomas, want to give us a quick overview about this launch and what's happening here?
Absolutely. So today's mission is in support of SpaceX's Starlink satellite internet constellation. One of many of these missions that we've seen over the last couple of years. Today's flight is Group 5-3. It is, in fact, the third mission going to the Group 5 group of satellites in the constellation. This is technically in support of the second generation Starlink constellation, although the satellites on board are expected to be pretty much identical to the satellites being launched previously. We're still waiting on those upgraded satellites that are more tailored towards taking advantage of Starship's capabilities, or maybe a miniaturized version that may fly on Falcon 9. We can talk about that a little bit more later if people want, but basically nothing particularly different about the satellites on board. There are 53 satellites on board today, and today's flight is got some interesting quirks to it. According to the SpaceX mission timeline on their site, deployment will be a little bit over an hour after launch, but that same timeline doesn't actually include a second burn. Normally, if deployment is that late, it means the upper stage is going to coast for a bit and do a circularization burn. And also based on the pre-launch, the TLEs, the two line elements, which are basically the orbital parameters that the satellites are expected to have immediately after separation, is a circularized orbit. So it could simply be explained as a mistake on the SpaceX website. But anything. Regardless, going to low Earth orbit as always with these 53 satellites on board. And today's first stage is Booster 1069, which is making its fifth flight today. So it is a flight-proven first stage. No data on the fairings, but it would be reasonably expected that the fairings are likely also being reused. SpaceX usually doesn't confirm that until the launch is actually occurring. We are going from 39A today. It is the first launch from here at this pad since the most recent Falcon Heavy mission. The pad has been converted back to Falcon 9 use, and we'll expect it to stay that way for a couple missions. After today's flight, we are anticipating a pair of Dragon missions from 39A. First, Crew 6, which is the next crew mission to the ISS, followed by a cargo mission, CRS-26, and then potentially going back to more Falcon Heavy flights, as there is some more of those planned for this year. But regardless, we'll focus on tonight's flight, or this morning's flight. Again, depends on the time zone, I suppose. The T0 for tonight was adjusted slightly. It is now targeting 2:58 a.m. Eastern Time, which is 7:58 UTC, which is just about 38 minutes from now. And because of that 38-minute mark, the SpaceX team should be entering their polling for today's flight. And so we'll stay, we'll listen in and let you know when they have polled go for launch. And we'll pass that along as soon as we have it. But otherwise, yeah, that's our quick overview of today's launch. Alex, you want to just touch on that weird timeline thing, and for those who are wondering what's up with tonight?
Yeah, so basically, usually these missions either go to an elliptical orbit where the perigee is around 210 or 230, like it ranges around that. And the apogee is also between 310 and 330, sometimes even going up to 340. Now, the thing is, today's mission, it's going, whoops. I went into that without actually having it in front of me. Now, into a 325 by 343 kilometer orbit. So that means it's going higher than, if it were into that kind of elliptical orbit with that lower perigee. And so the thing is, it's either being injected directly into that final orbit, or there's another second burn that the timeline isn't showing because they got it wrong or something like that. But yeah, this is interesting in that sense, because that also might explain why this mission is carrying 53 satellites instead of 56, where I'm already listening to the comms, and they're saying they're go for fueling. So basically, here this mission is carrying 53, whereas on the previous Group 5 launch they carried 56. So that difference of 3 satellites might actually account for that higher orbit that they are achieving on this mission. It is also true that sometimes the circular orbits that they go into these Starlink missions are related with like sometimes when they carry rideshare missions, they do this kind of higher insertion orbits. Now, it is true that for this mission, it doesn't seem like there's any other rideshare on board. Otherwise, they will tell us. But we also know that previously we haven't been told. But it is definitely most likely that the timeline just was wrong and they didn't add that. But yeah, it's likely that we're gonna see a 2 burn profile of the upper stage, and pretty much that.
Thank you for that summary, and we will just dive into question here because we got some. Starting with the second stage, Dave asked, does SpaceX deorbit their Starlink second stage? Who wants to take that?
I could take that. They sure do. Upper stages on most low Earth orbit missions do get deorbited. It doesn't take that much energy from LEO to just nudge your way back into the atmosphere for a safe and destructive reentry. There, you can actually see the hazard zone that got filed ahead of today's flight. You can see a zone off the southern coast of Africa. That is the path along which the upper stage is expected to destructively re-enter in order to prevent space debris and things like that. And so normal for a low Earth orbit mission, and today's flight is no exception.
That, and I got a question here that might be hard to answer, Alex, but I'm throwing it to you. If SpaceX deemed the booster to be expendable, how many more Starlinks could they even fit by Space Force?
Well, I would say probably 60 is the maximum they can fit on the fairing. I don't think it is. I mean, right now it is a mass constraint because these satellites are heavier than what they used to carry on earlier iterations of version 1 of these satellites. But once you already are over the capacity of the volume of the fairing, then that's it. And I'm mostly sure that maximum capacity is 60 satellites.
You for that. There's another question here. Why is Starlink internet not available in the Midwest USA? And I just checked that it's apparently coming in 2023. That's most likely related to ground stations, right? Because I think coverage of the angles shouldn't be a problem, right? Thomas, if you want to take that.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I don't know about that area specifically, but yeah, it would likely not come down to the satellite status, because satellite coverage certainly reaches the latitudes of the Midwest U.S. So could definitely be a ground station thing where they're still working on having relevant ground stations for that area. That would be my best guess, but off the top of my head, I don't know any more detail than that.
Yeah, makes sense, right? Because they have coverage, I think, in Alaska, and they also have in Texas. So there's it's definitely not a latitude problem
I
because
mean, I
they
also
cover.
know a couple of people who do have Starlink in what I would consider the Midwest. I know some people up in like Illinois, which is generally considered part of the Midwest. So I guess it depends on where exactly they're talking about. But either way, yes, the satellites cover those latitudes already. So it's most likely a ground station consideration.
Wonderful. Question by Lars here. How intricate are the pad modifications for a Falcon Heavy launch? Can they modify 40 instead of keep the crew capability to keep the crew capability online? Who wants to take the question?
I can go first, Alex. You can definitely add something if I miss something, though. So talking about Falcon Heavy, not Starship, to be clear, right?
Yes, it's about Falcon
Yeah.
Heavy and crew, like the whole jiggling around the pads.
Yeah. So yeah, 39A is currently the only pad that can support Falcon Heavy and the Dragon, most of the Dragon missions. The modifications aren't technically to the pad; they're technically to the transporter erector. So there's the reaction frame, which is basically the launch mount part of the transporter erector with the ground with the umbilicals into the bottom of the rocket and things like that, which you need to reconfigure to connect to 3 boosters instead of just a single stick Falcon 9. That's the biggest conversion they have to do. There may be some other smaller things that are more behind the scenes that we can't really see, but that's the only major modification they have to do. And they can't do that at pad 40. Pad 40, the rest of the pad, the flame trench and things like that, is not rated for a rocket with the liftoff force of a Falcon Heavy. That's only 39A, which of course was originally built for Saturn V, so it can take a Falcon Heavy. So that's why Falcon Heavy is limited to 39A. It's not so much like they need the crew tower or something like that. It's the base structure, the big concrete structure at the base of the pad, being rated to handle that much force at liftoff. Now, of course, you mentioned the crew launch capability. Pad 40 is planned to bring online a crew access tower, potentially by the end of this year, and that would enable both of those sites to serve as Dragon launch sites for Falcon 9. Originally with cargo missions and then for crew missions as well, which would give them a little bit more flexibility. And then basically their only limitation as to missions that can only launch from one of their pads would be Falcon Heavy missions. So they are still working on slightly improving their launch site flexibility, but for the most part, it's not huge work to convert between one or the other. You also see them convert the transporter erector between a fairing configuration, like we'll see today, and the Dragon configuration, because the umbilicals at the top of the transporter erector are slightly different for those 2 missions. So, but that's not prohibitively major work. It doesn't cause a huge increase in turnaround times. I mean, right, Alex? It's like maybe a few extra days to get that work done if they really need it.
Yeah, it's very like they've done from crew to fairing, for example, very, very quickly. I think even one of the fastest turnaround times at 39A was from crew to a Starlink or something like that. But yeah, and one of the things that I will actually add to you is that they actually looked into having Falcon Heavy at Pad 40 way back in the day. But instead they chose for East at Vandenberg. And the reason, they actually chose 2 pads for Falcon Heavy. One, which will be the start for Falcon Heavy at for East at Vandenberg. And then they were choosing another pad more closer to the equator that ended up being Starbase.
Yeah.
Basically. Until then.
And then Falcon Heavy ended up only ever launching from this pad, which was neither of those.
Exactly, because those were actually they acquire I think Boca Chica was like in 2013, 2012. Along with Vandenberg, they were looking at those 2 pads at the same time, and then in 2014 they actually got 39A, and that was when everything changed, and they were like, nah, Falcon Heavy from 39A.
Yep. So really quick before we dive into our next question, I will acknowledge the vapors that are starting to form on screen as our visual indicator that prop load is well underway. As the super cooled propellants flow into the rocket, it is starting to condense the air around the rocket, and that's going to give us a nice visual indicator as the rocket gets more filled with their RP1 kerosene and liquid oxygen.
Always good to see a rocket alive at this morning, because that's why we are, right? Not to answer a question, but also want to see a rocket launch.
Yes.
I want to thank Robbie Bradley for becoming a Pat Red member here. So make sure to check out these perks you get with that, Bradley. And thank you for joining our membership program. It's really important to make all of these things possible that we do with all the camera coverage and live stream coverage. So thank you for that. Musical Wolves asking, does Falcon 9 see its shadow during the landing burn? Happy Groundhog's Day. I don't even know what Groundhog's Day is.
Oh, that might just be an American thing. Yeah, we have a holiday here called Groundhog Day where the saying is if... All right, so this is going to sound weird to the Europeans, but Americans, you can back me up on this. There's a groundhog that lives in Pennsylvania, and on Groundhog Day, they take the groundhog out, and I'm not sure how scientific this is. Allegedly, if the groundhog sees its shadow, winter will last longer, like it'll stay colder longer. Yeah, there's a great movie about it. Groundhog Day is a great movie, but yeah, so that's what they're referencing, and the Europeans all now think we're crazy, which is not that far off the truth, but yeah.
Yeah,
I think
also
it's probably
apparently there's a
also-
movie. I just learned there's a movie about it.
Yeah, I should have assumed that Adrian has not seen the movie, as we all understand that.
The moment he asked about that, he was like, "Aha, you haven't seen the movie."
Yeah, nope.
I'm really sure that's probably the reason why that's mentioned.
Yeah, it's at this point I'm just guilty of everything.
Yeah.
Musical Moves with another $5 here and asking, are these the same generation Starlings that Starship will launch? Alex, are these the same generation?
That's an Alex question.
Oh boy.
Yeah, are these the same generation Starlings that Starship will launch?
So they're going into the second generation constellation, but the satellites are basically the same ones that they were launching for the first generation constellation. Now, there's the option though for them to launch a second configuration, which is called, at least on official paperwork, it is called Falcon 9 2, like -2. And that is probably what Elon mentioned a while back. I think it was during the T-Mobile event that they did in, I think it was August, at a Starbase. And he mentioned something along the lines of a Starlink V2 mini version for Falcon 9. And that is that is totally contemplated on the official documentation to be a potential configuration of satellite to be launched on Falcon 9. And well, we'll see what happens. It might actually be coming off soon. Those, by the way, will actually be actual Starlink V2 satellites, but they will be sized for Falcon 9. So they will be larger than these ones that they are carrying, so there will be less of them on the fairing, but they will not be as large as the ones that Starship will carry. So it's gonna be something in between of these two generations of Starlinks. So there you go. There's a whole soap opera here. If you want to know a little bit more about that, I wrote about that on the first article on the launch article for the first Group 5 mission, Group 5-1. So if someone in the chat, like mods or something, have the link, you can share it.
Yeah, we got to make a quick graphic to show on screen when we get these questions to it. All right, these are the 3 configurations of Starlink Gen 2 and the differences. We honestly need to make that. But yeah, thank you, Alex, for explaining. It's kind of
like on broadcast graphics. I like that idea.
I'll work on
it. There's a super chat for $5 and a question by Joaquin that is very much only for Thomas here. A quick question for Thomas. How do you like Embry-Riddle? I'm thinking about going there and would love to hear from you. Love what you guys do.
Yeah, well, it's been a while since I've been in Embry-Riddle now, but where I got my engineering degree and can recommend it as a wonderful place to go to school, and lots of very cool faculty there, a lot of cool programs. Highly recommend getting involved if you do go there with some of the labs and the teams that are extracurricular there as well. Also, close proximity to rocket launches is a big plus. So yeah, can recommend for sure. Feel free to, if you have like more specific questions, like DM me on Twitter or something. I'll try to answer some more specific questions too. But overall, yeah, highly recommend.
Thank you, Thomas. Then we got 10, I think, Australian dollars here. It's for once a good time zone for the Australians from the Sandwich Maker with no message attached. Thank you a lot. And also Brandon Meyer gifting 10 Red Team membership So thank you a lot for that, Brandon. And make sure if you received one of these to thank Brandon in chat, because that gives you access to behind the scenes and like photographs on our channel. So make sure to check that out. Let me dive into questions again. Curious how many orbital launches you think SpaceX might complete in February 2023. Oh, that's a very specific. I guess if they want to, like, I will just start here. I guess if they really want to achieve their goal of 100 launches this year, they kind of have to complete 8, 9 around that, because if they don't, they are kind of falling back in pace. It's kind of hard to make up for that in later months if they really want to hit that cadence. What do you all think? How many Falcon 9s?
They finished January with 8. Was it 8 in January?
7.
7.
This was going to be the 8th, but
Oh, and then it slipped. That's
it was
right.
delayed.
Okay.
Yep.
So January had 6 Falcon 9s and 1 Falcon Heavy, which is 7. That if you multiply that by 12, that's 84, which is more than they launched last year, but less than the stated goal of like 100. It's kind of in the middle, actually.
But he's saying this month.
Right, yeah, so
not
I'm
this year.
extrapolating.
Okay.
In order to, if they are going to increase the cadence towards that goal, they would have to go higher than that. Personally, I think they're hitting. I think last month they hit what is probably close to their maximum with their current configuration of Falcon flights. So I would guess another 7, maybe 8. I think the way they could get close to 100 is if they add Starship launches, and it's hard to predict how many of those will actually happen this year. But I'm currently skeptical of the 100 launches mark, which is why I'm not using that to answer the February question. I'm going to say 7 or 8.
Yeah, I don't see like any more windows how they could have increased their January. Like, it's already seemed super busy, and they were launching kind of left, right, and center.
There's lots of ways they can actually increase. Oh, by the way, that's T-minus 20-minute event there. There's actually many ways they could actually increase the cadence from drone ships, payloads, actual pads. But you can actually see a summary of all that on our video that we did a couple of weeks ago. Just actually, talking about that, like wondering if this is possible or not. Like, but yeah, for this month, February, they have between 8 to 10 launches scheduled. Now, will they actually launch all of them? We'll see what happens. But that's what's on schedule right now.
Thank you for that. Question by JR. You talked about the amount of Starlinks that can fit in this version of Falcon 9. How many do you think they could fit in the extended fairing? Also for fun, how many in Falcon 1?
Oh gosh. Is Falcon 1 even like wide enough to put a single one, or would you have to like put it vertically?
I will have to look it up.
I based on how small Falcon 1 was, I would be surprised if they could fit a single one. Because it might
mass-wise, you could handle it, but I don't know if it would even fit in the fairing.
Yeah. So, and I think the extended fairing, for the fun and giggles, we can talk about it, but I think the extended fairing is not planned for Falcon 9, right? It's a Falcon Heavy exclusive thing as far as we know.
I don't think so. I mean, it was proposed along with, it was proposed as far as National Security Space Launch, which, as a way to also take more advantage of Falcon Heavy, but I think the official payload users guide info suggested that you could put that extended fairing on either Falcon or Falcon Heavy. Granted, we still haven't seen the extended fairing up here or any official mention of it plans to use it yet, so who knows if it's a planned capability that will never be needed or what, but I don't think it's Falcon Heavy exclusive.
Okay, there we go. I learned something.
Just look it up, and for Falcon 1, it couldn't actually fit on the fairing that it had, but they had a proposal for a 3-meter fairing, so that could have been actually doable, if with that fairing, but nah.
A lot of theoretical fairing talk going on right now.
Yep.
It's the stream of the fairings here right now. It's very, very fairing heavy.
We're faring well.
Okay.
See, you blamed
There we
me
go.
for before the webcast.
Okay, you know about
also-
puns or at least funny things with words and numbers? I told you before this was the Starlink 3, right? Group 5-3. And then this one has 53 satellites. So there you go.
I
That's a
completely
trick.
forgot to steal that joke ahead of the launch. Thank you, Alex, for reminding me.
No,
Yeah, you
I
forgot.
already
I was
said
a-
it. We're on stream.
A kind of related question here to the previous topic, not the 53. Are there any updates on the vertical payload integration facility on LC-39A or the bigger Falcon 9 fairings? So we answered the second part, but the first part, is there anything new on the LC-39A vertical payload integration facility, Thomas?
There has not been. We haven't seen any evidence of them starting work at the pad. Best guess is they are kind of ready to spool up that operation if and when they're asked to, but it might simply be the case that the missions that they have been awarded through National Security Space Launch so far don't need it. It is unclear whether the upcoming Gateway launch, which again isn't until at least next year, with the first two modules of the Lunar Gateway on Falcon Heavy, I think it's still unclear whether that needs vertical integration. I believe it needs the new fairing. So there's evidence to just that fairing will happen eventually because of that one specific mission. I don't remember though, and Alex, maybe you'll correct me. Is vertical integration also needed for that or no?
It's weird because I have the conviction, at least from the sizes of the hangar, that they cannot fit the fairing in, like the long fairing inside the hangar door. So they will need like the vertical integration way of installing the fairing, because this is gonna be a little bit long. I'm sorry. So when they install the payload on the payload adapter and then they close it up with a fairing, that is in vertical position, and they transport that all the way to the hangar in vertical position. A good solution, I guess, will be to actually put it horizontal outside of the hangar and then roll it inside the hangar horizontal already. Because they put it horizontal inside the hangar and then they install it on the rocket. But I believe just because of the size of the door and the size of the fairing when it is vertical, and the long fairing is very long, I do not think it can fit through that door. But yeah, that's sort of my theory, that they need the vertical integration facility or tower or whatever you want to call it for that longer fairing. But again, I'm not 100% sure of that. It's just based on that processing. Again, they could just turn it horizontal outside of the hangar.
Would love to hear more on that. Maybe as we get closer to the Gateway launch, we'll hear more on that front, because that's the only mission we're aware of right now that needs that extra fairing space. We don't know. I mean, obviously, we hear a lot of details about the national security missions that they're awarded. So, but as far as we know, we haven't heard explicitly that they need vertical integration and or the extended payload fairing for any other missions yet. So maybe we'll hear more closer to the Gateway launch.
Go. Leo asking, which booster is this today? The number after the dash is the number of flights the booster has under its belt, right? So, I will answer this. I will just claim this question for once. It's B1069 today, and the number after the dash right now technically says this is the sixth launch attempt. So right now it would be called the fifth. It would be called B1069-5 because this is the fifth launch attempt, and as soon as it lands, it basically becomes 6 because it will attempt extend the 6 launch attempts. So this is what a dash means, if I got that correct, right?
Right. Yeah, it's not flights under its belt. It's the number of the next flight. So when before a booster makes its first flight, it's got a -1 on the end. So it's the number of the flight it's preparing for, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yes. There we go. On a scale of 11 to 10, how excited are you for KSP2? I can only speak for myself, but very. I'm
also very.
I think there will be some KSP2
productivity
playing.
in NASASpaceflight will likely fall off a cliff the day that comes out.
Yeah, look forward to the article assignment before that launch, Thomas. It will be dead silent at the meeting. Gonna be good. Any news on the Falcon 33 static? I think you mean the Starship 33 static fire of Booster 7, and that is now next week because the road closures this week has been cancelled. So no static fire this week. That's the news. I'm sorry to be the teller of bad news here. Leland asking, on the topic of deorbiting second stage, why don't we ever get camera views of deorbiting the second stage? Alex.
Well, sometimes, mostly it's because it's way after when they've completed their mission, so it's just not interesting to show. Like even for Starlink missions, they don't show now the deployment because it's sometimes they say it's not on ground station coverage or something like that. We still want to see it, SpaceX, but like, yeah, it's just easier for you to just cut the thing as soon as it reaches orbit. So yeah, that's probably like the most likely reason why they don't live stream that kind of stuff. We did get a video though of a second stage deorbiting from one camera on a Starlink satellite. I think Elon tweeted that a couple of months ago, and that was cool. And like the second stage just zooms by very quickly. But yeah, sadly, it's not a common thing.
The Lost Gamer Miggers asks, what's your favorite rocket sent to space? What an easy question to answer. So, what's the start? Which is your favorite rocket to send to space?
Like of all time?
I mean, it's what's your favorite rocket sent to space? So I think it only counts rockets that reached space.
Okay, so Spaceship 2 doesn't count, I guess?
Yeah, I was going to say. Hey, I count Spaceship 2. I'm a McDowell line fan.
Yeah. I was joking. I actually count that line as well.
Does this definition include Ares 1?
Ares 1 did not reach space by any definition, so no.
Okay.
But I will say my favorite rocket of all time is an orbital rocket, so I don't have to deal with weird definition, and that's Delta 2 holds a special place in my heart. So that's my answer.
I'm also going for the Delta line here with Delta 4 Heavy. Woo, who would have guessed? So yeah,
mine is
that's
easy.
my answer.
You're seeing it on the screen there. It's a Falcon 9. That's actually. This should be the 200th Falcon 9 orbital launch attempt, at least. We know one of them didn't actually reach orbit, which was CRS-27. And there was also another one that was suborbital in-flight abort test. But yeah, numbers and statistics, many of them.
And if you like Falcon 9, we have amazing merch that got you covered there. Because we recently launched a Falcon 9 collection merch in our shop, which is the launch, entry, and landing shirt. You can find it right there, which gives you a little bit overview when every engine is igniting on profile. Of course, there are different profiles for this rocket, so we know that. But this is one of the possible profiles. How the engines ignite during the process. I think it's a very cool design, also on hoodies, on mugs. I really like it. It's also very comfy. I can assure you our hoodies are very comfy at cold days. I tested that very much in this winter so far. So if you want to support us and get something for return, make sure to check out shop.nasaspaceflight.com for these for Falcon 9 merch and also other things such as metal prints and many, many other there. Back to the stream. And let's see. We have Nolsey, who became a Capcom member. Thank you for that. No message that and everything to that, but thank you. Make sure to check out our membership Discord because this is actually giving you access to our membership Discord with awesome cursed KSP creations and more. But that's the main feature.
That's the main reason. Everything else is just extra.
Yeah, it's like that's what it was created for. And there's like some rocket discussion there as well.
You can also see me rage about installing mods on KSP. So there you go.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my god, that was. Yeah, I will not get into the Alex.
I was trying to save Jack's Kerbals from Eve, and it's computers. They're
Yeah.
so complicated.
Yeah, it's you could also call that discussion "Alex doesn't understand technology," which would be
So
accurate.
then you go to
Sorry.
tech chat.
Yeah. Group poll: which launches first, the Gateway Habitat or the Interstellar update on KSP2?
No.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
I have no idea.
I'm gonna plead the fifth on this one.
Okay, I'm also. See, KSP2 didn't really say anything about the timeline for the Interstellar update, so we have no idea. I like both at the same day. I'm going for that because that's the easy answer.
Yeah, I once had a poll on Twitter saying, what launches first, KSP2 or Starship? That was in October. Starship
And
was
you
winning that
know,
poll.
it's I think KSP2
I'm
has total
definitely-
lead there.
Yeah, I'm definitely on KSP2.
Yeah, unless there's a very sudden plot twist that comes up here, I think KSP2 has this in the bag.
Yep.
The sandwich maker asking, does the Merlin undergo upgrade or is it in ain't broke, don't fix it configuration? Alex, does a Merlin undergo upgrades?
Well, it does have some upgrades here and there from mission to mission. Obviously, because of the whole crew launches thing, they have to be approved or like green lighted by NASA, but usually these changes are done like not cowboy style, sort of like Starship usually does, but more measured and over time and slowly, and testing it a lot at McGregor, which you can watch live on McGregor Live. There you go.
There you go, nice. But also, in addition to ground testing, they can flight
On
qualify
Starlink.
those items on missions that are not crew missions first. Yeah, so
Exactly.
like Starlink missions and things like that. So they can gradually work them into the crew vehicles if they need. But small upgrades like that are much more rare these days than on the early days of Falcon 9 before it was Block 5 configurations. So yes, but different than they used to be.
And since we got a question here, Starship plushie when? We are actually developing a new version of the Starship plushie, and I'm sure there's a link that the moderators will make sure to put in chat. You can sign up for a newsletter where we will update you as soon as the pre-orders or the pre-sale becomes available. So we are working on a new Starship plushie, and this time as a full stack, just to hit that quickly because it was asked. Avery asks with a $5 super chat, are people allowed to come down to Kennedy and watch the launches, or where do they normally watch them from? Thomas.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, there's tons of public viewing areas for all the different launch pads here around Cape Canaveral. For 39A, the best public viewing spot is usually Explorers Bridge, or if it's during the day when it's open, Playland, the beach is also a great spot. Those are the spots up on the north end of the Cape. For launches from Pad 40, I would recommend the bleachers by the Space History Center, which is by Port Canaveral. It's on the south side. Got a really good view of Pad 40. And for other pads, there are other spots. Highly recommend Ben Cooper's website, launchphotography.com. He has a good breakdown of what the best viewing spots for any particular launch coming up will be. But yes, you can absolutely come and travel to Cape Canaveral, see a launch. You can even buy tickets to view it from the Kennedy Space Center for certain missions if KSC is selling tickets for it. So that's also a possibility as well. Highly recommend coming to see a launch if you can.
Steve asking, what's the flight profile for tonight's launch? Will we see it up the coast at all? I think, do we have a graphic for that where we see yeah, there we go. So it's kind of flying a bit down. So I think you could see it a bit in the northern Florida as well, right? Launching.
Yeah, it's a night launch, so it's going to light up the sky pretty well. So even if you are to the north, even though this flight is flying southeast, you should be able to catch a glimpse of it, though. But it will not fly up the coast of the U.S. Towards Georgia and north of that. But if you're in Florida, you still get a good chance to see this. And if you're out on those islands to the southeast of Florida, you could also have a chance to catch a glimpse of tonight's flight. Of course, all weather permitting. Here at the Cape, there's some clouds in the sky, but also some patches of clear. So we should get a good view of it on the way up. And so obviously it depends on your local weather as well. And on that note, speaking of the weather, I am going to have to get set up to track with our camera here. So I think I'll hand off commentary to Adrian and Alex for the rest of the countdown. Just a couple minutes away from another Falcon 9 launch from Florida. See you on the other side, guys.
Good luck tracking, and yeah, see you on the other side. And also, I want to point out here that I think we also have a robot cam tracking again. So yeah, we will have competing tracks here for the launch, and yeah, we are getting close. Alex, do you mind giving us a quick summary? What happens in the next 2.5 minutes? How's the Falcon 9 getting ready for flight?
Yeah, so right now they're wrapping up propellant load. Stage 1 is already loaded with liquid oxygen and RP1 for the flight. And the second stage has been loaded with RP1. We saw that with a T-minus 20-minute vent 18 minutes ago. And now they're wrapping up LOX load onto the second stage. We should be coming up in about 20-30 seconds or so. And that will initiate the gas closeout. You see a lot of venting from the Stromback as well, which has been retracted as well. And then at T-minus 1 minute, the ground computers will hand off control of the countdown to the onboard computers on Falcon 9. It will also go into internal power as well. And then a few seconds later, the launch director will verify that everything is go for launch. And then, well, you see there, the gas closeouts. They have already wrapped up LOX load onto the upper stage. T-minus 3 seconds, all 9 Merlin engines ignite. And at T0, basically, the rocket will lift off, and then we'll go into that orbit with the rocket, with the internet satellites.
We are just 20 seconds away from that transitioning to internal power, which, yeah, kind of is like the crunch of the countdown, I would call it. It's like where we are getting excited, and we are just waiting for that LD verifying go for launch, which you will relay to me, Alex, I think, because you're listening into the launch countdown. So yeah, just
coming up.
Yeah, just 1 minute away here from Starlink 5-3. As a reminder, we will stop talking.
And Falcon 9 is in startup.
Let's go. Nice. Yeah, we will stop talking as soon as this lifts off, so you can enjoy the sounds for a bit, and then be back for you at a bit later, in a few seconds after liftoff. Go for launch. There we go. So just 30 more seconds to this launch. Watch for, that's cool, at night you can sometimes see this green flash when the T-tip is igniting the engine. So watch for that at T-minus 3 seconds, which will be the cool thing to watch here before the ignition. So that should come up in about 10 seconds. And once that happens, again, we will send off this rocket and then be quiet for you to enjoy the sounds. There's the deluge system. There's the T-tap, there's ignition, and we have liftoff of Starlink 5-3 carrying internet satellites. Here we go with the sound. Always very beautiful to hear. Here we go. That looked like a picture-perfect liftoff. Alex, what's next in the timeline from here on?
Yeah, so it has already passed max Q. It is now approaching the moment of MVAC engine chill, basically chilling the MVAC engine on the upper stage. You should see now that plume expanding on the first stage as it ascends into thinner and thinner atmosphere, and the pressure lowers and allows the plume is able to expand. We should be coming up on MECO in about 30 seconds from now, and that should be a quick series of events. We'll be seeing the shutdown of the 9 Merlin engines, then separation of the second stage, and that will be when the fairing will also separate as well after the MVAC ignition.
And we are just seeing here Michael's tracking cameras here being in action used. Always cool to see them. And also here onboard views from SpaceX, and they are also tracking it. And there's Miko. That is shut down. You could see that. And next up, we should see the separation and the ignition of the AMVAC engine, which we just saw there. SpaceX views are a bit behind there.
And
so
one thing of these Starlink satellites.
Go ahead.
One of the things of these you'll see right now, these missions for Starlink, unless they have a right share, you see the fairing halves separate really quickly after stage separation, very low into the atmosphere, in order to save as much mass as possible.
There you can see that's the MVAC burning, right?
Yep, you can see there that light from the first stage. The first stage is being illuminated by the second stage exhaust, which is cool because this is not jellyfish effect or anything. It's basically the second stage illuminating the first stage. Not now.
It's crazy how far these gases from the second stage and the exhaust from the second stage is really like spreading here. It's very, very cool to see. What's the next step for the first stage here, Alex?
It has deployed. It obviously separated from the second stage. It has deployed its grid fins. It is now steering into an engine's first attitude for that re-entry burn, which will occur in about 2.5 minutes, if I'm having my timeline correct. It's still not at apogee. We'll see here on the left, on the bottom corner on the left, you can see the altitude and speed of the stage 1, and it's still going up a little bit. It'll slow down and then come back down again as it reaches apogee. But yeah, in the second stage, I'm hearing nominal calls from the ground controls that everything is nominal. So yeah, really cool, really good. Everything going well.
It's nominal. And I think the dots we just saw there flying by are probably like stars in the background, right? While because it looks like the object is stable, but it's more like the object is moving while it's tracked, and the stars just flying by because they are stable. So I think that's what we saw there, what confused.
And that is still the tracking camera by Michael, by the way, on the left.
Wow.
That's Michael's tracking.
Insane. Yeah, that MVAC has a bit more to do before it gets to retire here. It's burning until like 8 minutes and 35 seconds. So 3 more minutes to go.
It reminds me of last week's Electron. I think it was last week, or maybe it was Monday. Yeah, it's weird. Sometimes I don't even remember when things happen. But yeah, on the Electron launch, we had Pat tracking Electron's second stage almost all the way to shutdown, to engine shutdown. So this is crazy. It's still 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes into flight, and it's
I think we had
tracked.
We had a joke in the back channel like it's day 4. Electron is all the way to orbit. Pat's still tracking.
Yeah,
I remember that. That was a good joking around. Yeah, but like from here on out, the big thing to watch for us is probably the first stage and its way to land again. And that will be the next milestones here we are watching once this first stage, hopefully B1069, is returning back to Earth for more missions. That's the goal here. So we will update on entry burn, which is coming up in about 40 seconds. No, 20 seconds actually.
Yeah, that first stage has passed apogee and it's now calming down, entering the Earth's atmosphere. It should be beginning that entry burn shortly with 1 engine first, then 2 other engines ignite, and then they stay lit for a few seconds, and then they shut down those 2 engines, keep one for another second or so, and then shut down. It's a 1-3-1 sort of burn.
And if SpaceX loses signal here with the booster, don't be worried. That sometimes happens after entry burn.
There we go, 1 engine.
Actually, there it is.
3 engines.
And I think that was 3. Yeah, there. it's very bright.
One engine, I think, and
Shut down
there
on
we
entry
go.
burn.
Shut down.
Does this tracking robot still have the second stage?
Yeah, I think Michael just said on the back channels, I still haven't sent a single manual command.
Michael over here flexing.
Yeah. It's almost
now it's over.
Seco. He lost it 1 minute before Seco.
Here you can see the that's like plasma forming, right?
Yep.
That's shows you how fast this stage for one first stage, my god, goes. It's about 5,700 kilometers an hour.
Well, granted,
Even though
the second stage also goes fast.
Yeah, but it doesn't have this pesky atmosphere on its way. That's making it hard for the first stage. But I agree with you, Alex. The second stage gets way too little credit. It's always like we talk about the cool landing of the first stage. The second stage is doing the majority of the lifting.
I think I saw the light of the drone ship through the... Yeah, you can see it on the left on the booster camera. It's very dim, but you can see it.
There we go. That's the drone ship. So that's the target booster. About 3 kilometers to go. And it will ignite the... Yeah, there we go. Thanks for that cue.
Single engine burn all the way to the drone ship.
About 400 meters. There you can see the drone ship below it.
Yep, a shortfall of gravitas.
And there come the landing legs. And we have touchdown of B1069-6. And Dan's favorite shot of the day as well, with the empty pad. So far, it looks like a very perfect mission. We also had second stage shutdown. So with that, this looks very good.
Also, nominal orbit insertion as well was called out, so that's nice. Always good to hear that, because sometimes it might reach orbit, but it's like if it's not the one that you like, that's still not desirable. So that confirmation is always good as well.
And just to thank a few more people here that super chat during this, Scott with the $2, thank you so much, and Scott again with another $2. So thank you so much, Scott. Rough guess on S24's weight versus eventual HLS weight. I mean, it will use some aero surfaces and also some TPS probably. So I would imagine, but also it gains life support. So I would call this at this point a rough to guess. Even on a rough scale, I would have a hard time. So yeah, sorry about that. We will just have to wait for more things to be released. Westy the third here, a very regular here in these. Thank you so much, Westy, for the 5 curly L's for the NSF Coffee Fund. Michael here, thank you a lot for the $9.99. And Mans on Mars, my rescue pup Willie Cyrus has this crazy obsession with watching launches on your channel. Thanks for the awesome commentary, gents. Woof, woof. I cannot believe I just woofed on stream. Thank you for that, and that clears up that as well. So with that, folks, I think we are at the end of our launch broadcast, because this is very much over. I want to thank first Mr. Alex for being my amazing co-host today. Thank you, Alex.
Oh, always, it's always a pleasure to be here on commentary and share a little bit of the stuff that's going on in spaceflight. And today we saw another Falcon 9 launch, but they do not get old. At least for me, they do not get old. It's always beautiful.
And also we had on field commentary Mr. Thomas Burkhardt, and also with the tracking. Thank you, Thomas. And we had Michael Baylor, I think, also tracking with his robots. So thank you, Michael, for providing some tracking views. And in the studio, pushing the buttons and pressing levers and everything, and doing things I could not ever do because if something would break, Mr. Kevin Michael Reed. Thank you, Kevin, for having this launch broadcast with us. And I was, and I still am, Adrian Bile. I'm also a writer for NASASpaceflight, And with that, we are wrapping up our launch commentary and see you all on the next flight.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good. Toggling up. Roger and roll with Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight outside SCE off. Say again, SCE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.